Hello and welcome to Chapter 9 Introductions and Conclusions. With previously what we've been talking about is the body and supporting material. And in those sections, there is a lot of room for creativity and individual choice of what you're doing, as well as, well, in general, a big opportunity for creativity. Whereas with chapter 9, there are still small areas of creativity, but it is mostly about the formulaic components that are found in all good introductions and conclusions in public speeches. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and what a good place to start than with introductions. Starting with introductions, we first think, why are first impressions so important? Well, the big reason why it's so important is because a person's impression of you is going to be based off of that first impression a lot of times. Not to mention, if someone has a bad first impression in a public speaking situation, then they may be less likely to listen for the rest and potentially change uh, their perception. Then we also want to, when preparing an introduction, we want to be sure that we're preparing the body first. A big challenge that comes with starting with the introduction is that you do not know what you're introducing until you've actually done the speech. So we want to be sure that we are actually doing that. We are actually starting with the speech first and then finding ways to introduce it. It could also cause a lot of procrastination if we start with the introduction, because that will cause that is a cause uh, of wheels spinning, and as a result, it's less likely to occur or to be successful. Also, we want to keep the introduction brief. We want to be no more than 15% of the speech time, because we are introducing the topic. We are not developing the topic. Also, make it complete, meaning that it should have all of the components of introductions. And plan the introduction word for word. This is usually not the way that we do public speeches, but it is sometimes a good idea because we really want to make that solid first impression. And if you have it planned word for word and you get it exactly right, you have more control over the impact of it. And if the audience is impacted by it, they provide nonverbal feedback to you. You receive that, you feel more confident, and then you're more likely to be successful throughout the speech. Here are the functions why we actually do introductions. First, it gains the attention of the audience. Second, reveals the speech topic, inspires the audience's interest in your topic, creates rapport, establishes personal credibility, and gives the audience a preview of your speech structure. Each and every one of these also has its own component. The greeting, attention device, significant statement, credibility statement, sharing the topic, and previewing the main points. Let's go ahead and get started. The greeting is the simplest part. Hello, everyone. I'm James Arroyo. That helps build rapport, and it's very simple. But again, it is more nonverbal than verbal. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Gets us started on the right foot. A conversational warm tone along with a smile can go a long way. The goal overall to build rapport. Rapport is a harmonious relationship where both parties uh, understand each other's ideas and communicate well. Now we move on to an attention device, and this is where we can find a lot of creativity. We can ask a question. You can ask for a direct response. For example, who owns an iPhone? Or how many people own an iPhone? I do. Cool. Or a rhetorical question. These do not require a response, just inward reflection. If you prick us, do we not bleed? How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man or woman? those don't really require answers. They just instead ask for inward reflection. Also, you can refer. Another way to grab the audience's attention is to refer to a recent or historical event. A good example of this could be the college tuition scandal that happened actually a while ago, where Aunt Becky decided to cheat, have her daughter cheat her way into college. Or you could even talk about coronavirus. Talk about how, due to coronavirus, it is that a lot of the systemic issues that have been prevalent are more in the spotlight due to the challenges associated with coronavirus. Also, you could make a reference to the audience who has a dollar. When someone says a dollar, then you can, you know, engage with them. One thing that I would do to teach trust in some interpersonal communication classes was I would ask, hey, who has a dollar? Then they would hold up that dollar and I'd say, hey, can I have it? They say yes, because, they don't expect I will take it. Suckers. Then I take it, I put it in my front pocket, and then I say, who has $10? Then someone raises their hands a little more hesitantly. They hold up $10 and I say, can I have it? They say yes. I put it in my front pocket. Then I say, who has $20? Someone hesitantly raises their hand. I say, okay, cool, thank you. I put it in my front pocket, and then I move on with the lecture. After about a minute, then I will say, okay, so let's talk about trust. Why, number one, trust is based on the magnitude of the detriment of how much you will be hurt by that trust being broken. For example, if someone with the $1 doesn't need to trust me all that much, whereas someone who gave me the $20, or even if someone gave me $100, then there would have to be a lot more trust there. Also, it is based on relationships, because a student professor relationship is very much based on trust. So it is understandable that a student would trust me. And then lastly, the situation. That in a situation like a classroom, it is a lot less likely that I am going to take someone's money. And then I put it in my pocket and I keep on going. No, then I hand it back. I promise. Anyway, also you can find common ground with the audience. Have you ever had an experience when you were playing basketball and someone was very, very aggressive? Me too. Have you ever had a time when you were sitting in a movie theater and then someone sat right next to you? Someone you didn't know. These allow for common ground and also relevance for the topic. Also, you could refer to occasion. This is a historical event. If it is an historical event, then talk about it. That can grab the audience's attention as well. You could also begin with a quotation. Nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. Aw. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Armenian genocide. Would that be a good attention grabbing device? Absolutely not, because it has nothing to do with the actual topic. We can also begin with a hypothetical situation. Imagine you have no financial worries. Imagine your career goals are met and you even have enough sleep, something that is not very common. What's missing? Relationships. You could then begin an informative speech on how to build relationships well with an attention grabbing device with that. begin with a story. You could also begin with a story. This could be real or fictitious, but a good example, if my speech was to show the audience that when you do fall, you sometimes have to get up, I may talk about the bike story. Now, is this a good way to tell this bike story? One time I was on a bike and I uh, took a turn and I face planted and got really hurt. But the next day I got back up. That may not be as good of a way to tell the story as one day I had recently got a new bike and it was a beautiful bike, like costed like $200. I was so proud of this bike. And I at first I started slow on the first day and it was a lot of fun. Then I went a little bit faster and a little bit faster and I pushed myself until that third day. I was riding real fast and I was super close to my home. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take this turn super fast. I fly down and I turn, I lean, and the and I make the turn, skidding all the way, and I hit a pothole. I bounce. I'm up in the air. I hit both of my brakes, front wheel and back wheel. Front wheel hits first. I fly over the handlebars. I'm in pain. Arms scraped up, face scraped up. I say, ow, because that's what you say in that sort of situation. And I am done. I limp home and I am suffering. But the next day I got back on that bike because when we do have situations like that, when we do fall off that bike, we have to get up or else we are less likely to do so. It becomes a bigger thing in our mind and it makes it harder for us. I would argue that that second story was far better because it created drama, but it again depends on what purpose you choose for that story and also how much time do you have. For a 30-minute lecture, that may be fine for me to do a 2-minute story to start us off. But if it is a 5 to 7 minute lecture, then that may not be as good. So be careful of using too much or using too much time on the introduction. And you could also reveal a startling statistic. One of my favorite startling statistics that actually speaks to customer service would be that 80% of a company's future revenue comes from 20% of its existing customers. What that means is that for a company to be successful, it has to retain its customers through good customer service, or else it will not be able to succeed. And you can also use an attention grabbing device. One of the things that you can use is you can use humor, but you have to make sure that it is appropriate for the given situation. Good example. So one nut is chasing another nut, and one turns to the other and says, "What? I'm a cashew." I know you're laughing tremendously right now. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Armenian Genocide. Again, not good because not relevant, and also with a lot of sensitive information, it may not be appropriate to start a speech like that with humor. Also, refer to previous speeches. Talk about, another speech that you've given in this situation. Also, refer to personal interest in it. Talk about if you are talking about drunk driving, you could talk about an experience that you've had with a drunk driver, or maybe someone who's close to you. Or you could even use an analogy. That's very much what I did with that who has a dollar activity. Loaning $1 was an analogy for this trust in those three ways. Then, so attention grabbing devices are a great way to be creative. Sharing the topic, it's less though. It's that topic revelation statement. It is the most important part of the speech, but we've also very much talked about it previously. So we are more or less going to move on, but it lets the audience know the topic of the speech in one sentence, in one simple sentence, preferably avoiding the word and. Then we have a significant statement, also called a motivator. It's 1 to 3 sentences that show the relative importance of the topic for the audience. Use personal language that relates to the specific audience. Use words like our rather than your because it then shows that we are both connected and that it's relevant to both of us and therefore motivating both of us to solve this problem or learn this process. Also, using source citation for this can be very effective. The reason why is because if you are talking about, let's say, a statistic that has good source citation, then it talks to a large population that is affected by this. If you say that 90% of all Americans will not make more than $100,000 annually in their lifetime, or that can then talk to a significant statement making motivation for us to engage in more social programs. But then what's the problem with what I just said? I didn't provide a source citation. If I said from New York Times, or maybe from the Journal of Labor Statistics or Department of Labor Statistics, that would be a better source citation. Then we have a credibility statement. This is a brief statement talking about why I'm qualified to talk about this. Focus on either if you are an expert in this, then that's great. But if not, talk about a personal experience or your personal relationship with the topic, any prior experience, but try not to sound boastful. Then, with the preview, it's previewing the main points. Okay, let's play a game. If your speech is on your 3 favorite types of animals, your preview, guess what, will look something like this. First, I'm going to talk to you about lions, then I'll talk to you about tigers, and lastly, I'll talk to you about bears. Simple, clear, brief list of your main points. That is all anyone is looking for this preview. And this is where function beats style. Because if I, for some reason, do not hear your preview, it's going to be a lot harder for me to understand your speech because I will not know what's coming up. Also, if you give me a preview, it's actually very personally satisfying for me, the audience, because I'm already in the know. I know what the speech is going to be. So, preparing the introduction, construct the introduction, and the conclusion for that matter, last. Make it relevant, be succinct. Again, 15% of your speech should be the introduction at most, and you should, if possible, write it out word for word and memorize it. Now let's move on to the conclusion. Some of the functions of the conclusion are prepare the audience for the end of the speech, present any final appeals, summarize and close, and with a clincher and appeal, and even potentially for persuasive speeches, challenge the audience to do something. The conclusion is going to be a little bit shorter than the introduction because there's not as many components, but it still is highly valuable because it is very unfortunate when at the very end of the speech, it just sort of ends. We aren't done, but that would be awkward. Now let's talk about, so again, we've talked about that. Also, the parts of the conclusion. We want to be sure that we're restating the main points. So there was a restatement of the main points. about I've told you about my three favorite types of animals. So first it's the topic, then restating the main points. I've just told you about lions, tigers, and bears. Then tie back to the introduction for an impact. So if I started with the joke, um, how two nuts are chasing each other and one nut turns to the other and says, "I'm a cashew." Then I may say, now when you know that two nuts are chasing each other, you'll know what they say. Something like that can create bookends so that you feel like there is this feeling of finality. And then lastly, we have a call to action. This is used for persuasive speeches. It shouldn't be so much stuff that you couldn't reasonably expect the audience to do it, but not so little that it doesn't solve the problem. We'll talk about this more during persuasion. And lastly, when composing the conclusion, prepare the conclusion in all of its parts. Do not include new information. The reason why you should not include new information is because that belongs in the body and and it doesn't really follow the format. If you're concluding things and then add one other thing that's not developed, then it just diminishes the speech. And follow the structure through the style. So that is it. I hope everyone has learned a lot and have a great rest of your day. I will see you next time.